Welcome to the skeletal primer for the scapular muscles. As you observe the key bones associated with the scapular muscles, realize that in order to learn the scapular muscles in the most efficient way, it is important to know the bones and the landmarks on the bones that are the attachment sites for these muscles. These muscle attachment landmarks are important for many reasons. Let's consider a few of these reasons. 1. They help define the boundaries of the muscle. Two, knowing the attachments makes it easy to learn the actions the muscle produces when it contracts. Simply draw an imaginary line between the attachment sites for any muscle and imagine what would happen if the line shortened. When muscles contract, they pull the more mobile bone toward the more stable bone. 3. One more important reason for knowing attachments is that these regions of the muscle contain many sensory receptors that provide important feedback to the muscle. Proper manipulation of these musculotendinous regions can produce beneficial effects to the muscles. Now, let's learn the key bones and the landmarks on those bones that provide attachment for the scapular muscle group. The only landmarks that we will cover are those that provide attachment for the scapular muscles. I will start with the bones of the axial skeleton that function as the stable attachment sites for this group of muscles. These are the more proximal attachments and are often referred to as the origins. The occipital bone is a flat plate-like bone that contributes to the base and posterior wall of the cranium or brain case. Here you can see it from a posterior view. Palpate the lower back region of your own skull and feel the prominent projection at the midline. This is called the external occipital protuberance. Moving lateral from this protuberance are two faint ridges called the superior nuchal lines. One of the scapular muscles will attach to these landmarks. The 7 cervical and 12 thoracic vertebrae form the superior portion of the vertebral column, which occupies the neck and thoracic regions, respectively. 4 of the scapular muscles will attach to 2 key landmarks on these bones. On the cervical vertebrae, seen here from a superior view, there are 2 key landmarks: the transverse processes and the spinous processes. On the thoracic vertebrae, only the spinous processes provide attachment for the scapular muscles. If you run your fingers down your back in the midline, you can easily feel the spinous processes. Another notable feature of the thoracic region are the ribs. These bones articulate with the thoracic vertebrae posteriorly and arch anteriorly to the front of the body, where most of them join the sternum or breastplate bone through a series of cartilages. 3 of the scapular muscles attach to the ribs, either at their lateral surface or at the anterior end of the bone, near its junction with the rib cartilages. The 2 remaining bones, the scapula and clavicle, are the more mobile attachment points for the scapular muscles. These are the bones that more easily move when the scapular muscles contract. The attachment landmarks on the scapula and clavicle are the distal attachment sites of the muscles, also often referred to as the insertions. The term scapula means a spade or a shovel because the ancient anatomists thought that is what it looked like. On the posterior view of the scapula, there are 4 attachment sites, or landmarks, that are clearly visible. The first landmark, which runs horizontally across the posterior surface of the bone, is a strong ridge called the spine of the scapula. At its lateral end, the spine expands and flattens out to form the acromion. Acromion comes from the Greek akros plus omos, which means the peak of the shoulder. Reach around to the back of your scapula and feel the ridge-like spine that expands laterally to form the flattened peak of your shoulder, the acromion. Next, note that the majority of the scapula is a flat, triangular bone that has 3 borders or margins. The long medial border, also called the vertebral border because of its proximity to the vertebral column, is the attachment site for 3 of the scapular muscles. As the medial border reaches the top of the bone, it forms an angle called the superior angle. Now let's turn the bone around and view it from the anterior side. From this view, you can again observe the superior angle, medial border, and the acromion. However, note from this view the prominent projection at the superior lateral aspect of the bone. This is the coracoid process. The word coracoid means crow-like, because the ancient anatomists thought that this process resembled a crow perched on a branch. This series of landmarks, then, form the attachment sites for 6 of the 7 muscles in the scapular group. The final bone we will examine is the clavicle. This slender bone is often referred to as the collarbone. The term clavicle literally means the little key in Latin. The ancient anatomists thought that it looked like a key. 2 of the scapular muscles will attach to the clavicle. One to the posterior surface of the lateral third of the bone, seen from a superior view here. To see the other attachment landmark, we need to turn the bone over and look at its inferior surface. The inferior surface of the shaft of the bone is the site of the final muscle attachment. These, then, are the key bones and landmarks for the attachments of the scapular muscles. If you can learn and remember this small number of structures, you will be better able to learn and understand the anatomy of the scapular muscles, and furthermore to deduce the actions that these muscles produce when they contract.